Welcome to the Fresh Start Show, sponsored by 911 Restoration, the Fresh Start Company.
All right, so we're diving into EV charging stations today.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, we've got this report on EV charging station installation.
Yeah.
And it's got some stuff in there that, I think is really going to make people think differently about how they approach it.
Yeah.
Before you just go out and install a bunch of these things. Have you ever thought about, how long do these things need to last?
Right.
What are the construction timelines? How could that impact things?
Yeah, one of the things that I found really fascinating in reading this report was how it kind of tackles some of the common misconceptions that are out there
Like what?
about EV charging infrastructure.
Like that there's no public interest.
Yeah, like that it's just not worth it, or
Right.
it's, just a burden.
Yeah.
And actually, they're showing that it's rapidly growing and will be vital.
Yeah, it's like building the highway system, but for electrons.
Yeah.
But so one of the things they stressed in this report was stakeholder alignment.
Yes.
What did it mean by that?
Well, they're basically saying that you have to get all of the decision makers and the investors on board early.
Oh, so it's not just about the tech. It's about the people.
It's about the people.
Yeah.
It's about everyone agreeing, what is the company willing to invest?
Right.
Are the stakeholders getting their buy-in early, agreeing on a high-level budget solution?
So they have to all be on the same page from day one.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay. But what about funding, though? I mean, you would think that, getting money for green initiatives would be a no-brainer.
Right.
Everybody would be throwing money at this.
Right.
But the report kind of revealed that navigating the government incentives and the subsidies can be really tricky.
Yes, very much so. And especially when you consider the fact that what might be available this year could disappear next year.
Oh, gosh.
And you have to plan ahead for these installations. And so that could become a major problem.
Yeah, they gave a pretty stark example. They said, imagine securing funds in 2024, but then by the time you're ready to install in 2026,
Right.
they're gone. That would be a nightmare.
It would be a nightmare. So one of the things that they suggest as a workaround is to try to integrate it with other property renovations that might be happening.
So you're bundling your veggies into a smoothie.
Exactly. You're bundling it all together, and you can tap into different funding streams.
I like that, yeah.
And potentially make the whole project more cost-effective.
Okay, so it's like being strategic with your...
Strategic and forward-thinking.
Right. I mean, wouldn't that also add another layer of complexity, though?
It does. It requires careful planning and coordination, for sure.
Because we're already talking about stakeholder alignment and funding issues, and now we're adding, renovations on top of that?
Yes. But the cost savings could be significant, and it shows that you are thinking ahead.
Right. Okay, so that's good.
Which can be very attractive to investors.
Okay, I see the logic there. But this report wasn't just about, the big picture. It also got into, the actual components.
Absolutely.
And the installation. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff in there I had no idea about.
What's the lead times on some of this equipment?
Oh, my gosh.
It's crazy. It's 6 months to 2 years.
I had no idea. I thought it was you just order the parts and you plug them in and you're done.
No, you're talking about transformers, electrical systems. All of that can take a very long time to actually get.
And what about the software side of things? I know the report touched on that briefly.
Yeah.
What do we need to know about that?
So you need software to manage these charging stations. It's going to handle user authentication, payment processing, energy monitoring, reporting, all of that. And you need it to be reliable, secure, easy to use.
So it's the brains of the operation.
It is the brains of the operation.
So it's not just about getting the electricity flowing. It's about managing that whole charging experience.
It's managing the whole experience. And there were some other things in there that I found really interesting about how they talk about future-proofing.
Okay.
They're suggesting that you install extra conduits during construction to accommodate future expansion. Oh, that's really smart.
So you don't have to tear everything up later.
So you're leaving room to grow.
We're leaving room to grow. Exactly.
No. Okay, so we've got stakeholder alignment, funding, woes component delays, software choices. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot to handle here.
There is, and I think the biggest takeaway from this whole report is patience.
Patience?
Patience, because this whole landscape is constantly evolving.
Right.
What works today might be obsolete tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's very tempting to just jump in and chase trends. But this report is encouraging us to really think strategically and long term.
So you're saying don't just follow trends, but think about what the benefits are
Exact.
for your specific property or your situation?
For your property, for your occupants, for your users. And think long term.
Okay.
Don't just do it because it's the hot new thing.
Right, right.
And one of the things that this report really got me thinking about
Yeah.
is as we move towards a future with more and more EVs,
Uh-huh.
imagine the possibilities.
Like, we could see entire business models built around these charging stations. That's a good point. Maybe even personalized charging experiences, tailored to individual drivers.
Yeah, it's like we're at the dawn of a new era here.
We are at the dawn of a new era.
But we've only just scratched the surface of this report.
Yes.
And I'm really eager to get into the nuts and bolts
Yes.
of what does it actually take to install these things.
I agree.
I think it's time to bring in an expert who's out there on the front lines.
Yeah.
Somebody who's actually doing this stuff.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Let's bring in someone who can give us a firsthand look at the challenges and the triumphs
Yes.
of installing EV charging stations.
Awesome.
That would be incredible.
Great. I am super excited to talk to them.
Me too. So welcome back. And, that report we talked about last time, it really gave us a great overview, but I'm ready to kind of dive into the real world
Yeah.
nitty gritty
Let's get into it.
of actually installing these things. And we have a great guest for that today.
Yes, we do.
Who lives and breathes EV charging installation.
Yeah.
They've seen it all, the smooth installations, the shocking surprises.
Yeah, they've been in the trenches.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face when you're installing these stations? I know we talked about lead times in the report, but I want to hear it from someone who's actually out there doing this.
Yeah, lead times are definitely a major headache right now.
Yeah, I bet.
Everything, transformers, switchgear, it's all delayed.
Oh, God.
It's like the supply chain is trying to catch up, but in slow motion.
Right.
So how do you deal with that? How do you keep projects on track when you're facing those kinds of delays?
Yeah, it really comes down to planning and communication. You got to order your equipment way in advance.
Yeah.
Have backup options in mind, and just be prepared to adjust your timeline as needed. And then communication is key. Keep everyone informed, from the property owners to the electricians.
So transparency is key.
Transparency is key when things are constantly changing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh.
Okay, let's talk about the actual installation process.
Mm-hmm.
The report mentioned some of the technical considerations, and it's not as simple as just plugging in a giant power strip.
I got that right.
So what are some of the things that people need to be thinking about?
Well, you need to make sure your electrical infrastructure can handle the load.
Okay.
EV chargers draw a lot of power. You might need to upgrade your service panel, maybe even install a dedicated transformer.
So the existing power lines might not cut it.
They might not, especially if you're installing multiple charging stations.
Right.
You need to consider the overall capacity. You don't want to overload the system.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then there's placement. You want the stations to be accessible and visible, safe ADA compliance.
Right.
Enough space for vehicles to maneuver.
So it's kind of like designing a parking lot, but with this added complexity
That's a good analogy.
of the power requirements.
Yep. And you got to think about the future, too.
Okay.
You don't want to install a bunch of chargers only to realize a year later that you need twice as many.
Right. Future-proofing.
Scalability is key.
Okay.
You're essentially future-proofing the infrastructure.
As much as possible, and like you mentioned in the report, installing extra conduits during construction,
Yeah.
that's a smart move.
Smart.
It gives you the flexibility to add more chargers later without tearing everything up.
Okay, so let's talk about software, because I know the report touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear your perspective on how important is it to choose the right software for managing these charging stations?
Software is absolutely critical. It's the brain of the operation.
Right.
It handles everything. User authentication, payment processing, energy monitoring, reporting. You need software that's reliable, secure, user-friendly, compatible with your hardware.
Okay.
And ideally, it should integrate with other systems like a building management system or something like that.
So it's not just about getting the electricity flowing, it's about managing that whole charging ecosystem.
Exactly. And this ecosystem is constantly evolving too.
Right.
What works today might be outdated tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So choosing adaptable software is crucial.
Okay, so I'm hearing a theme here. Planning, flexibility, long-term thinking.
Right.
What are some common mistakes that you see people making when they're installing charging stations?
One big mistake is underestimating the complexity of the project.
Yeah.
People think it's just plugging in a few chargers, but there's so much more to it.
Right. It's like you're building a mini power plant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another mistake is not considering the long-term needs.
Okay.
They install the bare minimum only to realize later they need more capacity or different features.
Got it.
So having that clear vision and a solid plan from the get-go is essential.
So it all comes back to that strategic planning that we were talking about earlier. Okay, so we've talked about like the technical stuff, the planning, but who all is actually involved in these projects? Because it can't just be electricians, right?
Oh, no. It's a whole team effort.
Yeah.
You've got electricians, engineers, project managers, software developers, utility companies, permitting agencies. The list goes on.
It takes a village.
It does.
So how do you make sure with all of these different people involved that everyone is on the same page?
Communication is key. Regular meetings.
Okay.
Clear communication channels.
Right.
Collaborative software tools can help keep everyone informed and aligned.
Yeah.
And having a strong project manager to oversee everything is essential.
So teamwork is just as important as the technology itself.
Absolutely.
So we've talked a lot about the challenges.
Yeah.
What are some of the most rewarding aspects of working on these projects for you?
For me, it's knowing that I'm contributing to a cleaner, greener future. We're building the infrastructure for a more sustainable world.
Yeah, that's like being part of a technological revolution.
Exactly. And it's constantly evolving. You know, what's cutting edge today will be old news tomorrow, so it keeps things interesting.
Oh, I bet. So with all of this rapid change, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out?
In the world of EV charging installations,
Yeah.
I would say do your research, talk to experts, visit installations, learn as much as you can about the technology in the industry, ask lots of questions, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty.
Awesome. Okay, so before we let you go, what are your predictions for the future of EV charging? What exciting developments do you see on the horizon?
Well, I think we'll see incredible innovation in charging speed convenience
Okay.
and integration with the smart grid. We might even see wireless charging become more mainstream.
Oh, wow.
Imagine pulling up to a parking spot and your car just starts charging automatically.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
It is, and I think businesses will increasingly incorporate EV charging into their operations.
Okay.
It's not just about gas stations anymore. It's about hotels, restaurants, shopping malls, any business that wants to attract EV drivers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The possibilities are pretty much limitless.
They are, yeah. So much to think about and so much exciting stuff happening in this space.
We've learned so much from you today.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
With us and our listeners.
Yeah, this has been so insightful.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This conversation has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah, it really highlights the complexities and the opportunities
Yes.
in this world of EV charging installation.
It does. But what does all of this mean for our listener?
Yeah, like what are the key takeaways that they should be thinking about?
What stands out to you?
I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are the most important insights from this deep dive so far?
Well, for me, it's just the sheer scope of this whole transition. Like, it's not just about plugging in cars.
Right.
It's about, like, building this whole new ecosystem.
Yes.
Like we talked about, funding construction software. Even the human element of getting everyone on board.
Absolutely.
It's massive.
It is, and it's happening so fast.
Yeah.
Which is why those lead times that we were talking about are so crucial.
Yeah.
You really have to plan ahead.
You can't just jump in.
No.
You need a plan.
You need a plan. You need to think it through.
Yeah, like remember that example from the report
Yeah.
about the 2024 funds disappearing by 2026?
Oh, gosh. Yes.
Like if you haven't factored in those delays, you're in trouble.
You're sunk.
Exactly. But I think what's exciting is like even with all the challenges,
Yeah.
the potential for innovation here
Oh, absolutely.
is huge.
It's massive.
Think about it, like as EV charging becomes more ubiquitous,
Yeah.
it's not going to be enough to just offer like basic charging.
Right.
People are going to
We're
want
going to want more.
faster charging, more convenient locations, maybe even personalized experiences.
Oh, yeah. All of that.
Like our guest was talking about.
Yeah, like what does that even look like?
It's like right now we're focused on building the gas stations, but soon it's going to be about creating the 5-star
Yes.
charging experience, the luxury charging experience.
What does that even look like?
Right, like what does that look like? I mean, imagine charging stations that are integrated with coffee shops.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Or co-working spaces.
Yeah.
Or they have loyalty programs.
Right.
You know, tailored recommendations based on your driving habits.
And-
The possibilities are really kind of mind-blowing.
And let's not forget about the environmental impact here.
Oh, that's huge.
As more people switch to EVs,
Yeah.
the demand for charging is going to increase.
Right?
But so is the demand for clean energy to power those stations.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
It's a whole system.
It is.
So for you listening out there, if you're considering getting into the EV charging game, this is the time to start learning and planning.
Yes.
Do your research, talk to experts like our guest,
Absolutely.
and think big. Don't just follow the trends.
Right.
Anticipate.
Anticipate them. Exactly.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive
It has been.
into the EV charging landscape.
We've uncovered some, I think, surprising challenges,
Yes,
but even more exciting opportunities.
absolutely.
I think it's clear that we're on the cusp of a major transformation,
Yeah,
and those who are prepared
right.
are going to be the ones shaping the future.
It's a future worth getting charged up about, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.
See ya.
The Fresh Start Show have been sponsored by 911 Restoration, the Fresh Start Company.